Man, that was a clap like, I don't know, like we've been alive for 2 years or something, but we've been alive for 6 years. That means as a church, we've been here for over 2,000 days. We've had over 300 services. We've had people make decisions for Jesus. So I think we can give him a little praise in this place. Come on. Hebrews chapter 10 is where I want to begin today. And I don't want to make a big thing there. It's all good, Brenda. That's why we got Pastor Amy here. Come on, let's give Pastor Amy a hand. All I got to do is point, and she knows what I'm talking about. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 32. It says, remember those earlier days. Come on, y'all. Sometimes you got to remember the early days. Remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. We're going back today. Someone say, I'm going back today. Skipping ahead to verse 35, it says, so do not throw away your confidence, for it will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere, so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. Then the writer of Hebrews starts quoting scripture. He says, for in just a little while, he who is coming, will come and will not delay. And by my righteousness, one will live by faith. And I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. Verse 39, I love this, but we do not belong to those who shrink back. Come on, somebody. I'm not on that team. I'm not on the team that turns around. We don't belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. I want to share a message today on our sixth birthday as a church. And I believe it's the word of the Lord for us today. And it's simply this: don't stop now. Don't stop now. Come on, let's put our hands together. You guys can find a seat in the house today. So glad that you could be here today. Come on, can we give it up for the worship team? Man, y'all are clapping like it's 11 a.m. today. I don't know what's going on. I guess the party's coming next service. Or we're just tired from Friday night, because we partied on Friday night. Anyone a little holy hangover this morning from Friday? I feel it a little bit. My feet have been hurting. So today, we're continuing the party. If we haven't met, my name is Harrison. So glad you guys could be here today. Man, what a day today. We're celebrating 6 years. We have baptisms. We got more in the second service. And after service, we got donuts. So stick around. We're partying. We're celebrating. But this week and last week are probably the two favorite weeks of the church for me personally. Last week was Vision Sunday. Anyone here for Vision Sunday? A few people. And man, it's amazing. If you weren't here for Vision Sunday, you need to go back and watch it, because we're on a train that's moving right now. And if you missed last week, you're going to be so confused. Right? So go back and watch last week, but we have this word from the Lord: tear down the walls. And so Vision Sunday is all about looking backward, or looking forwards, I should say, to all that God has done. And then we kind of pair it. We go from Vision Sunday to our Celebration Sunday, where we just look back. Vision Sunday, we look forward. Celebration Sunday, we look back on the faithfulness of God. And this is something that we do every single year in September. We kind of use it as a launch, but also we use it as a time for us to talk about the faithfulness of God. And there are two reasons that we always celebrate our church's anniversary. And they're for two people. Number one, they're for those people who have been here from the very beginning. Come on, any basement dwellers in the house today? A few in the back. Come on, shout out. I see a few hands in the back. And it's to remember all that God has done in 6 years. It's to look back and to realize, hey, we aren't where we once were. But it's also for those of you guys that are brand new to our church, or you picked up somewhere along the journey. I want to share with you all that God has done in these last 6 years. And I want you to know, it wasn't always like this. Come on, somebody. It wasn't always like this. And so we're going to look back today, and it's going to propel us forward. And one thing about me, I'm not sure if anyone else is like this, but I love origin stories. Like superhero movies, like I love the origin stories. Like the sequels are good, but I like the first one. Like I want to know how Peter Parker became Spider-Man. I want to know how Clark Kent became. I love the origin stories because you need to know he wasn't always Spider-Man. Come on, somebody. And it's not just like in superheroes. Like I love, my wife knows this. Like if we watch a movie or I learn about a new company, like I want to know their whole history. I want to know how they started. I want to know what the early days were like. And that's just me. I love origin stories. And it's funny though, because I've kind of realized something about our culture, especially like when something gets like big and established, especially when it comes to like big chains, like restaurants and supermarkets and all these things. I've kind of noticed in our culture, we sort of throw shade at the big chains. Have you guys noticed this? And I've noticed this especially so with people that I would call coffee snobs. Any coffee snobs in the house today? And if you talk to a coffee snob and you let them know that you went to Tim Hortons, if you talk to a coffee snob and you let them know you went to Second Cup, and here's the worst. If you talk to a coffee snob and you let them know you went to Starbucks to get coffee, they'll give you that look. You guys know the look? And they'll tell you about the place downtown that you need to go, that no one's ever heard of, but I've heard of, and it sells better coffee. Anyone met those people? Just me? I've noticed that there's kind of some shade thrown on the larger companies, but for me, I'm actually quite interested in places like Starbucks because it wasn't always what it was. It wasn't always what it is. If you guys didn't know this, Starbucks started, listen to this, in 1971 with one location. I got a lot of baristas in the house today. They're like, Pastor, this was on our test. So if you don't know, here's some more facts for the rest of us. In November 2022, Starbucks then, which it's obviously grown now, has 35,711 stores in 80 countries, which is crazy. Now, if you don't know, that isn't normal. And the vast majority of anyone that starts anything will never have 35,000 versions of that which they started. And so why I love origin stories and why I don't have time for people that throw shade on big companies is because you need to understand, no matter how big they are, it wasn't always like that. And they, like anyone else, had early days and early stories. And so I've just sort of found there's something about our culture that we don't care so much about starting. We don't care about how things started. We care about where they are today. And I just believe that when it comes to our church, I love what God is doing today. And I love where God has taken us. I'm excited for the vision and for what's next. But I believe that one of my primary jobs as pastor of this church is to let us know that it hasn't always been like this. And to let us know all that God has done. And I just believe that what I'm doing today, I want to model something that is not just for churches, but it's also for families. Parents, you need to understand this. One of your primary jobs as a parent is to recall the faithfulness of God in your family. One of our primary jobs, come on, if you own a company, you want to know how culture is diffused? It's diffused through stories. And so if you never tell stories, you can probably guess that your culture isn't that great because people don't know where you came from. They don't know what you're about. They don't know that it hasn't always been like this. And so today, and we'll see where it goes. I hope you guys are with me. I want to share all that God has done. Well, that's a lie. I can't share all that God's done. I don't got the time. I want to share a little bit of what God has done in these last 6 years so we can move forward in faith for all that God has next for us. So can I do that today? Come on, can I do that today? Okay, this is going to get awkward, but I was watching the 1 year anniversary and on my YouTube, and I could hear one person real loud in that message, and that was Kresia, and she's here today. And so, Kresia, you're going to set the bar for responding, and you guys all got to be louder than Kresia. because we heard her at the 1 year on the live stream. You're going to hear her on the 6 year on the live stream, but she's going to be crowded out by all y'all. So are you guys ready to go today? Let's go, man. And I'm going to show us why I just think we got to be thankful for what God has done and why we can celebrate. So today I want to study Hebrews chapter 10. And in Hebrews chapter 10, or Hebrews in general, just a little context before I get into it. It is a book that was written to Jewish Christians. And Jewish Christians, their issue was that as they were kind of morphing from their Judaism that they were used to, Christianity was kind of this different thing, but it wasn't this different thing. And some people liked it and some people didn't. And so the book of Hebrews is written really to explain how Jesus is better than anything that they've known. And all of their rituals, all of their things that they had done were all pointing to Jesus and had been fulfilled in him. But what happens is for the Jews, some people became Christians, and then some people, they didn't like that their Jewish brothers and sisters were following Jesus. And so what happened was that led to a little bit of conflict. And so where we pick it up in chapter 10, some of the Jewish believers are experiencing persecution for being followers of Jesus. They're experiencing persecution, not just from their Jewish brothers and sisters, but from Roman officials, so on and so forth. And so the writer of Hebrews, and we don't know who wrote this book. Some people think it was Paul. Some people think it wasn't Paul. So I'll just refer to him as the writer of Hebrews. What he's doing in chapter 10 is he's encouraging believers that are going through hard times. And I want to use his encouragement, and I want to kind of bring it alongside the story of our church. And so Hebrews chapter 10, verse 32, this is what he says. He says, remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. So remember the context. The church is experiencing some persecution. They're experiencing some conflict. They're experiencing some suffering. And so I want us to see what his encouragement is. It's interesting. His encouragement during their present suffering is, hey, can you guys just remember your former suffering? Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm suffering, that doesn't seem like the most encouraging thing. Hey, life's tough right now, but remember when it was tough last time? Now, it seems kind of like an oxymoron, but what's interesting and the point that he's trying to make to these believers is, hey, listen, you've been through this before and you're still here today. And so because God brought you through this before, I want you to remember, listen to this, I want you to recall what it was like in the early days. Because what you experienced in the early days is going to give you some hope and some faith for today. So his call and his word to us is remember the early days. Well, what happened in the early days? It was kind of hard. There was some conflict. There was some suffering. So here's kind of a truth I want to pull out today, and here's where I want to begin as I tell the story of our church. And I hope that as I tell the story of our church, you can take something, not just if you're a part of this church, but for your life as well. So here's my first point. Early anything is hard. Early anything is hard. It doesn't matter what it is. If you are doing something for the very first time, it is going to be challenging. So if you guys don't know this, I did not start a church before I started this church, meaning I had never done this before. And so I just think back to the early days, and I can let you know there were some hard times. One of the very first things that I had to do in order to start this church, I had to leave my job that I was at. And so for those of you guys that don't know, I went to school. I studied to be a pastor. I went to school for 4 years. And then I pastored as a youth pastor, a kids pastor for another 3 years. So I did kind of 7 years in the ministry realm. And then in order to start this church, I had to leave where I was, quit my job in order to do this. And so in the intermediate time, I worked at a place called FedEx. And I'll never forget my very first shift at FedEx. And I tell this in Growth Track. If you guys have gone through Growth Track, you'll kind of hear this story if I teach it. But in FedEx, before they let you drive the trucks and all that stuff, you have to go and sit in the classroom and learn all about FedEx. And I'll never forget, I was there at FedEx, and I had just left my job, and I was sitting and I was surrounded. Now hear me, there's nothing wrong with working at FedEx, but I had just like left a job and I was making like around $60,000 a year. For some of you guys, it's like, wow, that's a lot. For some of you guys are like, I'm so sorry. That's what, and I left and now I'm at FedEx and I'm making like minimum wage and I'm in this classroom and I'm surrounded by all these people in high school. And I remember thinking to myself like, man, what am I doing here? Now you need to understand something. I didn't have a backup plan. Like if this whole church thing didn't come through, I don't really know what I was doing. I left where I was. And I remember just sitting there and I was super, super discouraged. But what I did is I texted just a picture of my FedEx badge. I think it had my name on it. And I sent it to my family. And I never forget, my uncle, he texted back and he said, today is the start of a great story. He said, today is the start of a great story. And I remember it gave me encouragement in the midst of discouragement because I was like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if this thing is going to work out, but that's just the truth that early anything is hard. When you're stepping into something, you don't know what's next. Early anything is hard. And so from FedEx, our church began to meet in our basement. This was in May 2018. And it's funny, Christy and I were talking, my wife Christy, were talking this week, and we were just laughing about some of the things that have happened in our church and some of the things that ultimately, like, our church should have just died. Like, we shouldn't have made it. Like, we didn't make the best decisions always. And so I remember in the basement, I don't know exactly what week it was, but I'm getting some feedback right there. I don't know what that is. At some point in the middle of the summer, we shared the name of our church, Kingdom Church. And my wife, Christy, she actually came up with the name Kingdom, I think, and I kind of liked it. And to be honest, what I liked the most was Kingdom Kids. We're like, well, that sounds kind of cool, Kingdom Kids. And then I was like, we can build out the name later. Kingdom Kids is cool. And so then later we were like, bringing God's kingdom here and now, all that good stuff. But what I didn't know is that the name kingdom sort of in Christian spheres carries some connotations with it, which I'll let you guys know in a moment. So when we started the church, we began to run Facebook ads. For our launch, September 22nd, 2018. We ran these Facebook ads. And I'm not sure what this particular group was, but there's kind of this like Christian watchdog group that exists on Facebook in St. Albert. And they found our ad. And they put our ad, and I don't know if I found it or someone sent it to me. I don't remember. But I think someone sent it to me like, hey, you should probably see this. It's going off. And so in this ad, there's Christians in St. Albert. They found our church, Kingdom Church. And in the comments, they're like, hey, does anyone know what this is? And then someone in the comments is like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's an undercover Jehovah's Witness group. You see, what Christy and I didn't know when we came up with the name Kingdom Church, I also liked it because I Googled Kingdom Church and there's no Kingdom Church like anywhere around us. And so I'm like, sweet, we're like the only people. What I did not know is that Jehovah's Witness, they call their meetings or their meeting place Kingdom Hall. And so when we were Kingdom Church, this Facebook chat is going off and they're saying, yeah, they're just pretending not to be Jehovah's Witness, but they're actually Jehovah's Witness. And then the comments next is like, okay, we'll get the word out to tell people to avoid this place. And I'm like, what's going on? And the worst part is this, it was a group. I'm not even sure how I saw it. I think because our event was shared in it, but I couldn't comment on it. I couldn't comment. Now, you need to understand something, because some of you guys are like, what's wrong with Jehovah's Witness? Listen, we love all people. They're amazing and great people. But if you want to know more, come to Foundations. It starts in 2 weeks. We'll teach you a little bit of stuff. But they don't necessarily believe Christian Orthodox. Like they don't believe that Jesus is God, things like that. And so they're not necessarily like in the same tribe as us. So that's why these Christian watchdogs were like, don't you dare go to Kingdom Church. And so it's funny because I think about that and I'm like, man, like we could have died right then and there. Like we went viral for the wrong reasons. But like, I look back and that was hard. I remember I was stressed out, like that was hard. We haven't even started yet. But God has always been faithful throughout. There's been little things. And I remember somewhere at the end of the comments, someone said, I'm going to reach out to this church. And so someone messaged our church and I was able to talk to them. And I was like, nah, bro, we're Christians. And then they went back in the comments and they were like, all right, dogs, sit. They're a Christian church. It's all good. But that's just how it is. Because how many guys know early anything is hard? Early anything is hard, but when I look back, I can see the faithfulness of God. I talk about hard times. Starting the church was amazing. But I remember, man, like after starting the church, like week 2, personally, I was like, okay, I guess I'm a pastor now. I guess I got to lead this church now. Because I had worked for months in my basement for like 5 months. We were talking about launching the church. There wasn't a whole lot of context about like week 2. Like what does week 2 and week 3 look like? And I remember I was like, man, I don't know what to do. I'm like, what do we preach about? At that time, I'm not sure I'd ever preached 2 times in a row, like consecutively. And so it was just hard. And pastoring wasn't even the hardest thing. If you guys don't know this, we started the church with about 20 people. And we do a lot of the same things 6 years ago that we do today, which really meant that most people were serving like every single week. And so when people today, like you can go talk to your team leads and you can tell them that you're tired because you serve once a month. Don't come to me and tell me you're tired because you serve once a month. Because when we started this church, everyone served every single week. And they were serving like in 3 places on one service, like wherever. We had this thing, it said whatever it takes. And it's funny, I was talking to Christy this week, and so when it comes to sound, if you guys don't know this, like in order for the worship to do their thing, like there has to be a sound person. And my sister was, come on, you can give it up for her. She was our first sound person. And she literally learned the soundboard like the week before we started. And I was thinking back this week and I was like, man, like, I don't know what the plan was for the next year. Like, was the plan, hopefully she doesn't leave anywhere? Hopefully she doesn't get sick? Hopefully she doesn't go traveling? We didn't have a plan. But man, God is so faithful because like our very first service, like Prince was there. And then Prince started doing sound and we had 2. And how many guys know early anything is hard? Early anything is hard. And so sometimes when I'm experiencing things today, I need to remember how God was faithful in the past. So I just want to speak to someone today. Maybe you're early. Maybe you're early being a parent. And you're like, I'm not sure I can get through this. This is crazy. The nights are long. This is hard. Listen, early anything is hard. You want to know why? It's because you've never done it before. And anything that you've never done before is going to be hard. Listen, if you've just made the decision to follow Jesus, guess what? It's going to be hard. Why? Because early anything is hard. Because God is going to say, hey, the way that you've been thinking, you're not going to think like that anymore. That's really hard. Hey, the way that you've been living, you're not going to live like that anymore. That's really hard. Hey, the way you're gossiping, come on somebody, you're not going to gossip like that anymore. And that's really hard, especially for some of us, gossip is our native language. So it's kind of hard. And we give up and we get discouraged. But the beauty of church is that when we can have stories like this to build our faith, but you are also surrounded by other people. You're surrounded by parents who have been through it. You're surrounded by couples who have been married for 30 years, and they can speak into you and let you know, hey, it might be hard now, but early anything is hard. So the writer of Hebrews says, remember those early days. Too often, we give up because we equate hard with failure. If the story of our church has taught me anything, oftentimes hard actually means progress. It means I'm going somewhere. And so today, I want to build our confidence. I believe God is saying, hey, in the season that you're in right now, don't stop. Don't stop now. Early anything is hard. If they made it, so can you. If our church made it, so can you. Hebrews chapter 10, he says, sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. Other times you stood side by side with those who were treated as such. You suffered alongside those who were in prison. You joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property because you knew that you yourself had a better and lasting possession. So don't throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. He reminds them of the things that you've been through. Come on, man, think of the things that you've been through. You see, a lot of times we talk about like marriages, and we're like, oh man, early marriage is so hard. Listen, there's hard times at 20 years of marriage. But remember the early days. Remember how you made it through this. And here's what I love, because really what he's showing us is kind of this oxymoron. It's my second point today. You can be crushed and confident. You can be crushed and confident. You see, a lot of times we view confidence and confident people, and we think, well, their life just must be perfect. They must be confident because they have all the gifts, they have all the talents, their kids always listen, their business is booming, everything works out for them. That's why they're confident. They're confident because they're smart. Listen, confidence has actually nothing to do with what's happening around you. If you want to get like Webster's dictionary, that was Sid, I think, on Friday night. Confidence is literally just an assurance of what is to come. That's what confidence is. And so what the writer of Hebrews is letting us know is I can actually be crushed, meaning I can be going through some things. I can have not slept in a couple of days because I got a crying baby. I can feel like I'm not getting enough hours at work, and so my finances are kind of tight. I can feel the crushing, but I can actually still be confident. Why? He says, because you yourself knew you had a better and lasting possession. In other words, my confidence isn't in what's around me. My confidence isn't in outcomes. My confidence is in a person. His name is Jesus. That's why we sing those songs. His name is Jesus. I can be crushed and confident. And so when God calls me, man, I love the Bible. And come on, man, if you're not into the Bible, get into the Bible. And if you're struggling, like I can't get into it, I know I have the only luxury of like shouting out my Kingdom crew, but because I'm up here, get into a crew. They're all amazing. But if you're struggling to read the Bible, what it's all about, get it into foundations. If you've been in church for 20 years, it doesn't matter. God has something for you. It starts in a couple weeks. But what I love about the story of the Bible is that the Bible is not a story of God's heroes. That's what we think sometimes. It's a story of God's heroes who triumphed and made it through. That Samson guy, he was so strong. The Bible is about God using faulty and broken individuals to accomplish great things because he is a faithful God. And God has this way, man, of just taking people that don't feel like they're enough. God takes this way of taking the crushed people. So listen, if you feel unqualified, go read about Moses. Because Moses is like, bro, I can't even speak, God. Like, find someone else. I love the Bible because when I feel like, man, my family doesn't accept what I'm doing and it's really hard to be a Christian, I got a whole New Testament for you that is going to encourage you and let you know that you are not alone. You can be crushed and confident. I need to share some more stories about our church because they remind me we had seasons of crushing, but those crushing seasons are building a confidence in the God who gets us through them. I love Genesis 50 verse 20 because it says what the enemy meant for evil, God meant it for good, for the saving of many lives. It's called the Genesis 50-20 principle. It means I can be confident in the crushing because we serve a God that takes whatever dart the enemy wants to throw and he has this way of catching the dart and throwing it right back. And I just think like, man, what if every trial was a testimony just getting loaded up? What if every season of crushing, God wanted to use it to build your confidence? I love just how God's, and it's funny because, 5-6 years ago, during some of the things I didn't always love, the things that we went through, but I love them more now because it gives me a confidence in God. And so like I was talking to some leaders at the beginning of the summer, and I don't know who said it. I wouldn't call them out. It might have been Pastor Amy, I'm not sure. But said something to the extent of like, this summer is going to be lean. So like it's going to be a little bit of a stretch. And was that you? I don't know. It was one of our leaders. Like it's going to be a lean summer. It's going to be hard to get everyone to serve and volunteer and make it through. And who it was, I was like, let me tell you about lean. Let me tell you about lean. So today is baptism Sunday. Come on, somebody. Our very first baptism service, it happened probably like 4 months into our church, and there was 4 people getting baptized. And like our church like started like really big, like yeah, and then like week 2, it's like kind of small, right? And so then for a few weeks it was like, steady 30, 40, 50 people, whatever. And then like the baptism weekend was coming, 4 people getting baptized, and I was like, okay. Like there's going to be a big crowd today. We're going to get some people that don't go to church. They're going to fall in love with what's going on here. It's going to be a great service. It's going to be excellent, all of our values. And then like Mateos, our worship leader, y'all know Mateos? A few people. He calls me the morning of, like 8 a.m. He's like, hey, Pastor. He's like, just so you know, like, it's just gonna be me on worship today. And I was like, what do you mean, just you? He's like, yeah, like just me, like I'll get the acoustic guitar and I'll just lead it. And I was like, no, it's not gonna be just you, like I'll make some phone calls. Because at that point, he was starting to feel bad that he'd called Andrell like 14 weeks in a row and said, can you play drums today? And so he's like, it's gonna be just me. I'm like, it's not gonna be just you, let me make a phone call. I was like, Andrell, can you get on the keys, or on the drums? And so our very first service, and by the end, we tripled it. Come on, somebody. We had 3 people on the stage for our very first baptism service. But I look back at those days and I'm like, man, I felt crushed. But you wanna know what happened? We made it through. You wanna know what happened? God showed up. And so I can be confident today to let us know that whatever season we're going through, it's been worse. Come on, somebody, it's been worse. Last week, if you guys were at the 9 a.m., we had a little bit of a video malfunction. We're trying to play the video in this spiritual moment and announce all these things, and then the video doesn't work, right? And if you know me, I like things to go smoothly. So I'm a little bit crushed because I'm like, oh my gosh, like why isn't this thing working? But I'll tell you what I'm not. I'm not worried. And I don't lack confidence. And I'll tell you why. Because there was one service when we first started our church. And I'm thankful most of you guys weren't here for this one. But what happened, I think it was like in the summertime, a Bible college reached out to us. And they were like, hey, can we bring our worship team and lead worship for you guys? And I was like, sweet, Bible college, like talented kids, like we barely have any musicians as it is. Like, yeah, you guys can come through. And for whatever reason, like I didn't vet the song list. I didn't ask what they were singing. And they came and they kind of did this like weird country worship set. And they sang these songs I had never heard of. I don't think anyone's heard of. And I'm not gonna lie, I was embarrassed. I'm sitting there during worship. I'm like trying to praise God through it, but I'm like legitimately embarrassed. But you know what I did after? I got up and I preached. And so today, when we go through some crushing, I'm confident I'll get through it. I can tell you it will not get worse than that. and I still got up and I preached. And like God bless those Bible college kids for coming to our church. I'm thankful for them. It just wasn't our style. Like I think it was like cowboy church style, but I'm thankful. I'm thankful for all that God's done. Our church was 1.5 years old when COVID started. And many churches didn't make it through COVID. And for whatever reason, during COVID, when our church was really small, we actually came out of it, not smaller, but stronger. God did this thing where people are watching us online when you could literally watch anyone in the entire world. People are watching Kingdom Church. And sometimes I get a little bit discouraged because like on our YouTube, like all of our most popular videos are still from COVID. And so I'm like, come on guys, like let's get some new ones in the top 10 here. These suck, but we can be crushed and still confident because he who began a good work will carry it out into completion. Hebrews 10 says you need to persevere. I love this line. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. It's simple. He says, don't give up. He says, don't give up. I know sometimes as I lead this church, specifically people who are close to me, they can get frustrated sometimes because I won't let them give up. Because I just believe deep in my spirit that if you don't give up, you experience the blessing. And I just know, and I've seen it in my own life, it doesn't make sense. And what really changed my life is when I had this moment one day where I realized that God knows everything about me. God knows my sins. God knows my bad habits. God knows my shortcomings. God knows my addictions. God knows my issues. God knows everything. Yet somehow he said, that's the guy I'm going to choose. And that changed my life. And so I just happen to believe that no matter who you are in this place, no matter what you've done, God still wants to do something through you. And I just believe I can't let you give up. And I won't let you quit. And I just think that's my calling because it's changed my life. God has a plan for your life. And that's not just for you as a leader, that's for your marriage. Don't give up. It can feel hard right now. It can feel crushing right now. But what if there was a blessing on the other side? You know, the Bible in the book of Genesis, before the fall, before sin, we have marriage. And so what I know is that there is a great blessing in it. And so because there's a great blessing in it, the enemy wants to steal it from you. He wants to destroy, he wants to break it up. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're feeling crushed right now, you can be confident. You can be confident if you rely on Jesus, if you put the work in, man, it can get better. For some of us in this place, our kids are kind of wilding right now. And it's like, I'm not sure it's going to get better. Listen, children are a reward from the Lord. The Bible says they are our heritage from him. And so what that means is in any season, even when it's hard, whether they're wild or whether they're not sleeping, whether they're runaway rebels, whatever it is, they are still a blessing from God. I can be crushed, but I'm still going to be confident. Whatever area in your life that you feel like you want to give up, can I encourage you, persevere, so that when you have done the will of God, you'll receive what he promised. My resolve is this, and I pray that it's the same resolve for every single person that calls this church home. Let's become a place, let's become a people where we don't give up. Where we don't give up. Every single day, I want to wake up, I want to roll out of bed, I want to do the will of God, and I want the enemy to be ticked off. I can't believe he woke up again. I can't believe he got back on the horse again. I can't believe he's going to preach again. I can't believe he's going to teach again. I can't believe he's going to love again. I can't believe he's going to serve again. Come on. And I don't want that to be my resolve only. I want it to be our resolve. I want God to see Kingdom Church and say, the devil, God already sees us. I want the devil to see Kingdom Church every single Sunday and say, man, they're serving again. They showed up again. They got on the stage again. Why? It doesn't make sense. They're crushed. I've thrown every single arrow. I've thrown every single dart of encouragement. Their finances don't make sense. Their relationship is struggling, yet they keep getting up. Come on, church, don't stop now. Don't stop now. Worship team, we're going to wrap up so you guys can come up here. We're still here. Hebrews 10, verse 37. He says, for in just a little while, he who is coming will come and he will not delay. He says, and by my righteousness, those will live by faith. I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. He says, but we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. Jake, you can take this. Thank you. Come on, let's give it up for Jake. We don't belong to those who shrink back. Come on, somebody. So here's my last point. It's simply this. Here's why we can move forward in faith. It's because we know we're on the winning team. I'm not going to give up because I'm on the winning team. I'm not going to give up because I know if I just keep staying on the path, victory is guaranteed. I'm not sure if there's any football fans in the house today. I'm a big New England Patriot fan. Listen, guys, they suck right now. But for 20 years, a legitimate 20 years, they had a quarterback named Tom Brady. And I can tell you as a fan, and the numbers back this up, but like every single game I would watch, like they would pretty much win. And obviously they lost a few times. But it was really weird, like being a fan now versus being a fan then. And I love sports. And most sports that I watch, there's like this anticipation, like, man, who's gonna win, who's gonna lose? For those 20 years when I watched the Patriots, it was really weird because I was like, they're gonna win. I don't know what the score is. If it's 28-3 at halftime, they're still gonna win. And as a fan, it changed everything. Because no matter what the score was, no matter the ups or the downs, I had this confidence that said they're going to come back. It's going to get better. This isn't the end of the story. Now, the difference between Tom Brady is that he sometimes loses. Jesus, he's already won. The victory has been fought and it's won. And so you and I, we are just living in his spoils. And so all the enemy can do, he can't win. His only strategy is to get us to give up. But if I know I'm on the winning team if I know that he who began a good work will carry it out into completion, that means every single day I just have to put one foot in front of the other and say, Jesus, I'm following you today. I'm following you. Even though I feel crushed, I'm following you. So today in this place, here's my resolve as we enter into the 6th year of our church's history. I want to remind you that whatever you're going through, better days are ahead. I want to remind you that you are on the winning team if you are in Christ, and that whatever you are going through today is only a season. It will not last a lifetime, because Jesus has something for us. So come on, can we stand for a second, church? We're going to sing a song in a moment. But before that, every head bowed, every eye closed, I want to make an appeal. If there's someone today, this is my first appeal, that you've never entered into a relationship with Jesus, and you're in this place, I want to just give you the opportunity. My second appeal is this. If you feel like you've been on the brink of giving up, on the brink of quitting, but you have that resolve today to say, I'm fighting another day. So come on, in this place, every head bowed, every eyes closed. I'm gonna give you 2 options here. If you wanna give your life to Jesus, you can show me your hand. And if today you're in this place and you wanna step back into the fight, you say, I'm not quitting, I'm not going anywhere, I'm ready for whatever God has. Can you show me your hand in this place? Come on. So we're going to sing this song. It's called More Than Able. And it's kind of our rallying cry for this next season, that we serve the God that can do the impossible. And so, Father, in this place, in our hearts, do what only you can do. I thank you for your faithfulness. I thank you for your goodness. I thank you for how you have sustained us, and you will continue to sustain us. I thank you for what is next. I thank you for what is to come. And God, for the people in this place making decisions today to follow you, to put their trust in you, God, I pray that you would meet them right here, right now. In Jesus' name. Come on, let's worship together.